Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I'm Conrad, and this is the 45 Week 16 What Happened. A couple big matches. Most importantly, we are tied 5-4 thus far in the weekend. So I'm guaranteed at least 500.
Actually, that's not true. Say you get this wrong, go to 5-5, it'd be 24-20.
I'm talking about for the weekend. I'll be 500.
Oh yes, of course. The season's still kind of struggling, but for
all right.
this weekend, you're doing very well.
50%. I'll take it right now.
Hey.
The Saturday matches, I went 2-3. Jack went 3-2. Then today, 3-1. That Brighton Wolves match kept me from being perfect on the day. And then tomorrow will be the decider between West Ham and Arsenal, which is as inconsistent, and who the hell knows what's going to happen. And we are on opposite sides of that one. But off to the matches. Everton-Chelsea. I'm not sure who saw this one coming outside of maybe Big Dunk. The interim manager, former player, Duncan Ferguson came on, and he was interviewed after the win. They said, "So, are you going to go to Mashiri and ask for this for the full-time gig?" He says, "No. This has been fantastic." It's a wonderful quote by him. You could see he was genuine in it. But we need the best people here, and I'm just happy to do whatever I can for Everton. I'll stay as long as they want me.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're seeing a bit of an era in Premier League football right now where you see the clubhood legends that are coming back to their clubs to come back and kind of instill that leadership from the top. We see it with Manchester United and Chelsea are the big two ones right there, and you see the passion that he exudes when he's out there on the pitch. It's big to have that as your manager, but at the same time, Lampard and Ole have both showcased that they have managerial experience, while Duncan is not quite there yet. So I think that it's smart for him to downplay expectations and say, we're going to wait for the right guy. Because at the end of the day, that showcases how good of a servant he is to the club, that he's willing to do what's best in their interest and not what's best for Big Dunk.
Getting the new manager bounce, right? But the team came out and they were just on fire. Dominic Calvert-Lewin had the brace, overall 3-1, took the lead very early. Richarlison towering header, just a great finish. Kovacic did bring them back with one, but not nearly enough. The back line for Chelsea were awful, but in attendance, looking behind Lampard, is that Guardiola or Mourinho? I couldn't quite tell.
It's a bit of a mixture. If you just smash them together, you get
Guardiola.
one genius manager.
Guardiola.
You get one genius manager, but he tried to sneak in as a steward.
Or Muriola. I don't know. But Zuma and Christensen were atrocious at back. Couldn't do anything. This is now the third or fourth match in the last 5 or 6 where Chelsea have just not looked like they did in the first 10 or 12 matches. Kepa, the only Kepa known in this area is a public toilet. This is what the fan base now thinks of Arrizabalaga.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's tough because the thing with better news for Chelsea recently is that their transfer ban was removed. That's a big deal for them. They can add some more reinforcements to their club, add some height to your talent. But the thing is, they're going to now want to replace a lot of different players. The 3 names that are probably I would say the biggest ones are Jadon Sancho, Kalidou Koulibaly, and Ben Chilwell. They would cost a lot of money, and it's going to require a lot to pry them from their clubs, but those guys would transform it. And after the recent poor performances from Kepa, who's currently the most expensive goalkeeper in world football, when he was bought by Chelsea, they want him out. They want Jan Oblak in net. He would obviously break that record as well because he's obviously a world-class goalkeeper for Atletico Madrid. And it just shows you the demands that Chelsea have for their club, even when they're not at their highest level. And it just showcases the ability that they have to attract top-tier talent, even when they're in a bit of a rebuilding year, like they are right now.
They're still top 4. I don't know that they need Rudiger will come back, and I think that's going to help a lot. Callum Hudson-Odoi back, there's some of these guys coming back in will be helpful. Rudiger won't solve all their defensive woes. He won't, maybe he'll mask a little bit, make Kepa play a little bit better because he won't be under quite as much pressure he is because that Zuma Christensen pairing is so bad. But I think they risk upsetting the chemistry and what they've done with the youth players if they do too much in January. So
if I was a Chelsea fan or board member, I would say the 3 guys I just listed. I would say those are your 3 guys that you want to get.
That's 300 million pounds.
Of course. I mean, Sancho's easy 100 million. Koulibaly's an easy 100 million, and I don't know how much it would take to get Chilwell from Leicester City. Excuse me, but 2 of them are English. other one's second best center back in the world behind Virgil van Dijk, it would transform your squad. And it would take you from being a, top 4 challenger to a title challenger next season should they get those deals done. I think it's something to look at, but it's a very long-term vision. In the short term, they struggled against Everton, and it just showcases the flaws that they have as a squad.
Yeah. So Everton here, the quote being, they're going to hire him, Duncan Ferguson, as the full-time manager. Some people, because everybody's afraid to tell him that he's no longer the manager. It's the guy that picked up joint record red cards in his stay in the Premier League, 2 stints with Everton wrapped around a stay at Newcastle, and spent 3 months in jail as for assault on the field. That's quite a legacy.
It is a big legacy to leave.
And people are terrified of him. Everton move up to 14th place. 14th place, 17 points, out of the relegation zone. Chelsea, 29 points, 4th place. Still looking good, but they've had a bad run of form the last little bit here. Liverpool travel away to Bournemouth. 6th straight win for Liverpool. Just absolutely dominated this. We're just going to look at pure numbers. 3-0 win. Nathan Ake come off for Bournemouth. Did not look good. He had a great tackle on Salah, who was breaking away, and then came up limping and had to come off. Naby Keita, fantastic goal and assist. Mohamed Salah, great goal and an assist. Just a great all-around match for Liverpool, but these are the beginnings of the numbers. I mean, this is tough to see on the screen. But
we really called this match, I think, almost perfectly, not to pat ourselves on the back too much. We both had 3-0. We both said that Bournemouth won't create too many chances. Liverpool will dominate them, even though it's away for them. And you look at those numbers, 74% possession, 1,000 touches, 850 passes. You dominated. And there's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, those
They're
are
FIFA numbers, literally. And they crank it down to semi-pro, basically. And it was easy. Easy for Liverpool. And Bournemouth will have a lot of things to look at. But again, this is a Liverpool side that are hugely talented. And they're rewarded for having a lot of rotation on the midweek fixture against Everton.
Yep. 7 changes made from that side. Both Firmino and Salah came out of the midweek match against Everton. Came back in today. Mane went out. They bring Oxlade-Chamberlain back in, Milner back in, Henderson off. They just made a lot of different changes. Against Keita, the 8, just had a masterful performance. I know you were very impressed with what he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was so happy to see it from him because he's a guy that I rated him a lot when he was in Leipzig, and I was excited to see how he would make this transition to the Premier League because he's a very technical player. He's not a physically dominant player. He's very small in stature. And so I was interested to see how he would transition. Would he be like a N'Golo Kante kind of player? Would he be more of a flop in that midfield area? And for the first 2 years, he's looked like a bit of a flop.
He's had a lot of injuries.
But injuries have plagued him, and it's not been a lack of form or a lack of ability. It's been injuries. And he finally got a chance to be healthy, and in a match where he was given a lot of free roam to rule, had a goal and an assist, was the man of the match by a long mile. And if he can step up for Liverpool, it just makes them that much more lethal, that they have that guy out there who can do that for them.
First start all season, really only his 2nd or 3rd appearance, but Salah, his 5th goal in 5 appearances versus Bournemouth, maintains that 100% record. Meanwhile, Bournemouth down to 5 losses in a row, which leaves them 15th place on 16 points, just 1 point above the relegation zone. Meanwhile, Liverpool sitting
They're
in
safe.
A big 46 points. Now 6 points greater than what they need to stay up for another season.
Exactly, yeah. They will be there next year. That is for sure.
Absolutely insane. We'll touch on the table a little bit later, but still now 8 points clear of Leicester after their victory today.
Mm-hmm.
Tottenham Hotspur and Burnley, if you combine the goals that we predicted Tottenham would score, it's still more dominant because they held Burnley scoreless. Burnley looked absolutely terrible. Jose Mourinho, obviously very, very excited about Sonaldo Nazario, the Brazilian-born Korean player. that run was absolutely ridiculous, but Burnley really didn't give him any kind of defense. They didn't challenge him.
That was the issue. Is Spurs looked great, Burnley looked awful. They dominated in every aspect of the game. They were attacking them from the top. They were Kane was performing, Son was performing. This is what you wanted to see if you were a Spurs fan from the beginning of the season. And it just reaffirms that it was the right decision to move away from Pochettino. As sad a move as it was, Mourinho is a cold-blooded winner. And he is instilling those values into this squad, which needs it a lot. And they're beginning to make the upward trend into being up there for that top 4 conversation. You got to keep performing, but at the same time, the league's been wide open for a long time, and they're trying to break it back open and get into that top 4 conversation.
I don't know that I've seen a happier Mourinho than in these 2 weeks he's been there. I seriously don't remember this much smiling. But this from at Rick Spur. If this is the typical boring, uninspiring, tepid football under Spurs head coach Jose Mourinho, then be prepared to suffer a lifetime of this. I mean, Spurs fans have to be over the moon with what's happened. Obviously,
And what I liked most about this, sorry to interrupt you, is that, remember we talked about this, how many years ago was it, when he was at United, and they were free-flying at the beginning of the year. We said, hey, they're playing really well right now, but wait till they lose a couple of games. Then they're going to pull back the reins. They're going to move away from allowing Pogba to be roaming forward. He's going to be playing in a midfield pivot too with him and Matic, and he's going to limit them. That exact thing happened. They pulled back the reins. They became much more defensively oriented. They lost in the midweek against Manchester United. Spurs did. And they did not decide to revert back. I'm glad that Mourinho is trusting his guys to continue to move forward. I hope he continues with this, because when he plays this kind of football, he's one of the best in the world at it. It's just he needs to go with a more risky strategy rather than being a bit more cautious with it.
hard to say. I don't. I mean, this is the exact conversation we had 2 years ago when he first started at United, and they were flying, scoring 4 goals a game, and I don't know. Liverpool now 23 points, 6 behind fourth place. You know, for those Champions League spots. They got a lot of work to do. Chelsea obviously are helping them out a significant amount. They've really come back to the pack there. Meanwhile, Burnley dropped to 13th position on 18 points. The interesting thing, he brought on 3 young players at the latter half of this game, which is not a Mourinho thing to do. Granted, he didn't start them, but what he did do at that full-time whistle, he went to Son, asked him for the match ball so he could give it to Tony Parrott because it was his debut. And that's, again, he's never done this in the public eye. Maybe he was like this behind scenes, I don't know. But just doing these things it really seems like a culture change for him.
Huge for the players. It knows that there is an opportunity at Spurs to be a youth player and succeed at the club. And that's a huge deal to have. And you hope those players will have the best they can. And it's a great move from him to reward the players for their dedication and to get to this point in their careers.
So good on Spurs, 5-0. Moving on to Watford Palace, which saw no scoring. We saw a little bit more free flow out of this one, but it turned into a grinded-out match. I think Watford will be very pleased with the single point. Nigel Pearson was named as manager take over following this match. Obviously, Pearson known for what he did at Leicester to get them promoted and then keep them up before he was fired and moved for Claudio Ranieri, who then took his players and went on to win the Premier League. So Pearson knows a relegation scrap. We'll touch on that here in a minute. But again, I think they'll be happy to see the goalless draw. Palace, meanwhile, lose Jeffrey Schlupp before the first half was over. Hodgson saying, these guys were just tired. We really went all out earlier in the week. We just are happy to have some rest. But
yeah, it was a bit of a poor result, I think, for Crystal Palace, because they're having a really good season so far in their eyes, and Watford have been struggling, and especially because although we know that new manager spell, I guess, exists, it's very real. They didn't really have a new manager, technically. They kind of just lost their old one, and they're about to get a new one. And it's tough to say that Crystal Palace deserved more from this game because they just didn't play very well. Neither did Watford. It wasn't a great game, in all honesty, and 0-0 reflected it very well. And although Watford were more engaged in trying to get the result, which is a big deal for them, they were unable to do that. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how Pearson takes a side that has 9 points through 15 matches and how they can turn that around.
On the Palace side of things, they did have, now this is their third different set of center back pairings the last 3 matches and 3 consecutive clean sheets, which is nothing to, that's nothing to sneeze at. Cahill playing very, very well. And Hodgson does have, I think he was pleased with the point. I agree with you. I think it was probably a little bit, they were probably wanted more out of this match, but Hodgson really has this team pretty well organized, and the tactics are, generally speaking, he's been pretty spot on with it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nigel Pearson's work starts now. They seem to think they can make their way out of here, but they're 9 points through 16 matches, which means they need at least 31, 32 points in their next 22 in order to get clear, and I don't see that happening.
That's not easy to do at all.
No. Again, Pearson knows how to do it. They do have a little bit of talent, but I don't see that happening. I don't think it's a realistic expectation at all. And the big match of the weekend, the Manchester Derby, ended up 2-1 to the red side of Manchester. Both of us botched this one. I had it as a draw. You had it going 1-0 to City. Unfortunately, this match overshadowed by the actions of a few folks in the City sections. Racism, this type of behavior, this type of it doesn't belong in society, never mind in a football match. He did get arrested. Who knows what will happen? Can the FA do about it? What can FIFA do about it? Don't know, but you have to, as fans, you probably have to hold one another accountable, but this isn't okay. It's
so difficult to deal with.
It's just not
and
okay.
It really does overshadow the way the match kind of went for, because United played phenomenally, and that's something that they really need to get credit for. They played so well in front of a hostile City crowd, and they looked like the better side throughout the entire match. It wasn't a case of a smash and grab 3 points. They were the better team, and they deserved all 3 points. And it could have been a more comfortable result, which is what the players and Ole, all of them echoed, that they should have done a bit better. And the fact that you're saying you should have done a bit better in a win against Manchester City shows you where this team can go.
Yes.
And it gives everyone a lot more optimism in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
So it remains to be seen what happens as a result of the fan being removed and arrested. But to your point, Rashford saying we could have had more. But this looked... Man City all of a sudden look old and slow. And United just counterattacked them to death. And it could have been more wide. But old and slow, young and fast. This is Guardiola's fewest points through 16 matches in his career. I don't know. I don't know that I agree with Ole here saying we just beat the best team in world football. One of the best teams in world football, but clearly a team that's hit by injury defensively, had problems. We've talked about it. But yeah, it's difficult for them right now. I mean, here's his calling cards thus far, right? Beat Chelsea twice, drew with Liverpool, the only team in the Premier League thus far to take points off Liverpool. Even they have lost outside the Premier League in the Champions League. Beat Mourinho's Tottenham Hotspur team, embarrassed Pep's team at home. Even though with those highs, they've so inconsistent. They've drawn to Sheffield United, Aston Villa, lost to Bournemouth, lost to Newcastle, lost to West Ham, lost to Crystal Palace. It's very much a Jekyll and Hyde team.
Such a Jekyll and Hyde team. And they'll hope that they can turn things around. And they'll hope that they can get those middle-tier results better. And we mentioned this, actually. I think in the preview, possibly, we said they're really good against the big clubs. And this season, they've not lost, and they continue that against all 5 big 6 clubs they've either won or drawn. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned it there. Obviously, they are so close, but they seem to beat the teams they should beat, and that's the thing that's so confusing about it. We mentioned it's like Klopp earlier on with Liverpool.
Banana peels.
Get that consistency.
Banana peels. Yeah.
Exactly. Get away from those banana peels, and you're good. But it's just a question of can they do that.
Pep Guardiola did come out afterwards in his post-match comments and said, look, it's unrealistic to think that we can catch Liverpool. Liverpool were 10 points ahead on Christmas last year, didn't win the league. They can certainly squander an 8-point lead over Leicester, a 14-point lead over City. Kyle Walker, meanwhile, says, no, we're not out of it. And I think that's the players that they have to have that belief. And it's good, that they're disagreeing with their manager. They're going to fight and they're going to play.
It's very good.
Villa, Leicester. Vardy brace. That guy just keeps on scoring. Eighth game in a row. He's coming close to his own record of 11 matches in a row scoring, which he set in that championship team season a couple of years ago. But just a complete and total destruction of Villa here.
It was so impressive from them. They continued to. I doubted them. I thought this was gonna be a banana peel game for them, like we mentioned. United are struggling with. I thought they were gonna struggle here, but they did not do that, and it was so impressive to see how they were able to handle that.
Unbelievable. I mean, again, Vardy just looked spectacular. Kelechi Iheanacho came in last year, 35 matches, 2 goals, 4 assists. Thus far this season, this was his first start. He's appeared in 3 other matches, 4 games, 4 goals, 2 assists. Looks reinvigorated. You chalk that up to being healthier. You can chalk it up to just Rodgers working magic on him. Don't know, but he's been vital for them.
Exactly, and it's transformative for them. We remember Shinji Okazaki and Jamie Vardy was their front 2 last time that they won the title, and they have another great forward here. It's Kelechi Iheanacho this time.
I do think they can give Liverpool some trouble. Granted, Liverpool beat them 2-1 in their lone match, that they have played against one another this year. And to your point earlier, Leicester haven't yet played the rest of the Big Six. They've, maybe done well against some of the teams, as have Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
But Dean Smith here saying we can't win games we concede 23 opportunities.
Yeah.
They just individually didn't perform well. Tactically, they weren't doing the right things. So, but here's Leicester
They
City.
were played off the pitch by Leicester.
100%. Here's Leicester City's year so far. Second in the Premier League, 38 points. 9 goals against, which is the best defensive record in the Premier League. 16 goals for Vardy, leads the league in scoring, and 8 wins in a row, which is a club record. Not bad.
Speaks for themselves.
Not bad.
Speaks for themselves.
Yeah. And then the Newcastle-Southampton match. We saw this one a little bit wider. Ings did get the scoring started early on, his 5th game in a row with a goal, 9th goal in 16 matches, but obviously not enough. He's the lone bright spot in that team.
Exactly.
Steve Bruce getting it done for Newcastle.
Yeah, one thing about Ings, real quick, is I see him a lot as the kind of player that is doing really well on a struggling team, and when they go down, they send him back up by sending him to a Premier League side, because he proved to Liverpool during his time at Burnley that he was a player capable for them. So they signed him and brought him over, but injuries just plagued him, honestly. He had several knee injuries, and he's finally getting a long-term amount of health, and he's showing how good he is as a player. He's got a phenomenal mentality, and he's a really, really good striker. He scored in 5 straight matches, and obviously wasn't enough to get the result here today, but it was a big deal for them.
He was good to start. Steve Bruce really, I think, coming on well after taking over from Benitez. He's not been a fan favorite, but 7 games unbeaten at home, 7 points clear, 10th in the league, 2 points off 5th place. I mean, he's got this team going in the right direction.
Exactly.
They can maintain it. They do have a decent amount of talent, but they did sustain the injury to ASM in that they don't know what it is. Bruce, as good as he's done, he did feel, a little bit bad about this one. He said he was fatigued. He should have taken him off, and he didn't, and he ended up getting hurt. He did score in this one, I believe, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. But we'll see how he turns out. But good on Newcastle, 10th place, 22 points. Southampton now in the drop zone on 15. Newcastle travel away to Burnley, while Southampton are home to West Ham for the next matches. Norwich and Sheffield United. Neither of us saw Norwich scoring. They did get on the sheet first, and then Sheffield United were atrocious in the first half, as bad as you could see anybody play. And then Baldock comes on second half. I didn't come on second half, but assist for the equalizer, scores the go-ahead goal. 2 goals, 2 minutes, game over, done.
Yeah, it was not a great performance from Sheffield United, but when you're a newly promoted side, like both of these teams are, you need to just get these results out of the way, get them down. I wouldn't say it's a relegation 6-pointer, because Sheffield United are doing very well on the table, but it just showcases that Norwich are not quite at the standard they need to be. This is a team you should be beating, because they're a team that's also, they have the same amount of Premier League experience this year as you do, and you should be able to be capable to be close with them. And at the end of the day, they had a good start, and they weren't able to continue the performance. And once Sheffield United woke up, it just showcased that Norwich needed Sheffield United to be a bit off and be a bit sleepy in order to be able to be dominant. And once Sheffield United woke up, they couldn't handle them. And at the end of the day, Sheffield United are a better side, and they're more positioned to do well this year.
I think it's down to Chris Wilder, who has been not a fan of VAR, but it came to save him. Basham sent off with a red, 77th minute. Or 75th minute, and then it was overturned by VAR because it was deemed not as serious as it looked in real time. So, but then they were denied a penalty late on. Sheffield United probably should have had a penalty, but it doesn't matter. They went on to get the win. VAR, they've got to take a look at that in the offseason. I'm not sure what they can do, but again, Sheffield United still have not lost away this year or since January. 2 wins, 6 draws away for Sheffield United in this current campaign.
They're doing so well away from home, especially because you mentioned it before. They had that 1 win and 6 draws. It was like Liverpool, but just inverted. 6 wins and 1 draw for them, and they got another win. It's good for them. I mean, they have a lot of points. They're doing very well to pursue that 40-point mark, and they could very well exceed that, a lot like the Wolves of last year, where they're newly promoted and they don't say, "I want relegate. I don't want to stay up. I want to exceed that and go for Europa League. They have
Well,
a shot at that.
They're right now 8th on 22 points, and it is tightly packed in that top 10. We'll show that in a minute here. But 8th place, 22 points. Norwich, 19th, 11 points. Just 2 points above Watford. So Watford can climb above them if they get a couple of wins here and there. The last match thus far of the weekend, one still to go. Brighton home to Wolves, and this ends as a 2-2 draw. Both of us saw this going to Wolves. I feel like we're a little partial to Wolves. We like Nuno and his beard, at least I do.
We do.
But again, another match. These two matches happening back to back. 96 seconds between Brighton's 2 goals. Wolves came out, took the lead, fell behind 2-1, and then Jota got the other half of his brace on the other side of these 2 goals from Brighton. Ends as a draw. All the action in the first half, nothing at all of consequence in the second half.
Yeah. It's a good result for Brighton, honestly, because we both had this as a match that was going to be too tough for them. And they showed that they were capable to be able to use that home atmosphere to spur on a quick jolt of energy. They'll be disappointed that after that 96-second double, they weren't able to continue the performance. But at the end of the day, Brighton are not going to be too upset with the point there. And we mentioned it. You get the draw here against Wolves, and you also manage to get that win against Arsenal. It's a great time to be a Brighton fan.
You beat a top 10 team or draw a top 10 team and beat a bottom 10 team. Just what team is Arsenal these days?
You would not have expected that at the beginning of the season.
No,
let's say it that way.
Wolves again now unbeaten in how many matches now? 11 matches without a defeat. A lot of draws early on, but they've taken their wins when they need them. Brighton now sitting 12th place, 19 points. Wolves, I think now 7th place. What I have here is wrong after the matches. Brighton next, away to Palace. Wolves home to Spurs. It'll be interesting to see which Spurs team shows up, the one that concedes or the one that scores a lot. Anyhow, tomorrow we've got one match left. Jack's got this going to Arsenal. I've got it going to West Ham. Again, we talk about Jekyll and Hyde teams. Arsenal far more Hyde than they've been Jekyll. They just I don't know that they can bounce back.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know what to expect out of West Ham either.
Exactly. This is going to decide who has the better weekend out of the two of us. So I'm hoping that Arsenal can finally turn it around and get a result here. Who knows what's going to happen, though.
And if the draw will end up 5-5. That's what's going to happen. Here's the quick look at the table. Liverpool obviously top on 46. Watford remain bottom, 9 points. The key here is that left side from 5th to 10th is the 2-point spread. You know, those last 3, 8, 9, and 10 all separated by goal difference. But Arsenal, with a win tomorrow, could go joint 8th. And with a loss tomorrow, you know, there's then a 3-way tie for 11th if West Ham move up. But again, 9 points separating 5th to 18th.
That's just crazy, honestly. Just the condensity that is existing there. I don't know if that's a word.
It is now. You spoke it into existence.
Exactly, yeah. There's so much that if a team can get hot, they can just get right back into the mix. You mentioned with Everton, they needed to make that change because they needed to get back into the mix. Look, those 3 points took them from 18th up to 14th. If they get another win, that takes them up past that little, group ahead of them, and they'll be sitting in about 11th place, assuming Arsenal don't get a result. That's just one club. Any club can look at that and say, we just hit a good run of form, then we're heading into a good direction.
And you've got a shot at the top 5.
Exactly. And that's the mentality to have.
It's crazy. So one more match tomorrow, and then we've got some European football before the festive fixtures really kick in. And 1 month from now, this table, there's going to be so many fixtures between now and just after the holidays. This table could be very well completely upside down. Never mind all the injuries that take place, you know, over the course of that many games in that short a period of time. Who knows what will happen? But that does it for us this week. Our week 16. What happened? Not all has happened just yet, but we shall see. That is Jack. I'm Conrad. This has been the 45 at the 45 on Twitter. Like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate it. Thank you all. Take care now.